Another Republican congressman just quit on Donald Trump and Mike Johnson in a message that makes it clear that the midterms are over for Republicans. This just isn't going to happen. Not only is our pedo president engaged in an illegal war, the most unpopular he has ever been, but he is making it worse. Making it worse by picking terrible candidates, making it worse by backing horrible incumbents, and making it worse by just continuing to exist. And so face down with this reality, we are seeing MAGA flee, whether it be because of Donald Trump or for the instance that we are going to get into in this video, because of themselves. Now, before we get to this breaking news, I want to start with kind of a broader overview of how bad it is for MAGA right now. When it comes to their candidates and their lack of character, and Rachel Maddow did a great job breaking it down. And it is how we got to another MAGA Republican quitting, and what is just another devastating and brutal blow for the midterms.
After a somewhat lengthy investigation of Congressman Edwards, this bipartisan ethics committee is now recommending that he should be censured by Congress. He should be censured for sexually harassing young women who worked in his office. And the operative word here is young. Chuck Edwards is a married 65-year-old man. One of the women he's accused of pursuing relentlessly in his office was 19 when she first started working with him. In case you're curious, yes, Chuck Edwards is running for re-election this fall. The North Carolina Democrat running against him is a fifth-generation North Carolina farmer named Jamie Ager. In Ohio, the Republican Party has until next week to replace incumbent Republican Congressman Max Miller on the ballot, if indeed they are going to replace him. Max Miller is insisting that he's running for re-election in Ohio, but after mounting accusations of physical abuse toward his ex-wife and their young daughter, accusations with which Mr. Miller denies, his political future is very much in doubt. Max Miller's ex-wife is the daughter of Ohio Republican U.S. Senator Bernie Moreno. Bernie Moreno is now demanding Max Miller should quit his re-election race and quit Congress, but nobody knows if he will. Again, Republicans only have until next week to replace him on the ballot if he's getting out. So far, Max Miller says he's not getting out, but we shall see. In case you're wondering, the Democrat running to unseat Max Miller is named Brian Poindexter. He was already in a statistical dead heat with Max Miller in Ohio before Senator Moreno demanded that Miller get out. We shall see. So those stories are out of North Carolina and Ohio, troubled Republican candidates in those states. But, you know, if there is a state that's kind of leading the pack when it comes to Republican candidates you can't quite believe are really still on the ballot, this year it's got to be Texas. In Texas this year, Republicans have nominated the guy who bought Jeffrey Epstein's ranch to be their statewide candidate for comptroller. His name is Don Huffines. In Texas this year, Republicans have picked as their statewide nominee to oversee the oil and gas industry, someone who is perhaps most famous for polling people online with this question: who is a bigger threat to America? And then he gave you just two options to choose from: Muslims or Jews. He is now the Republican Party's nominee for statewide office in Texas. His name is Beau French. The guy who has the Republican nomination for U.S. Senate in Texas has a big anniversary today. Today, August 3rd, is the anniversary of his mugshot being taken. On the day he turned himself in to face charges in a multi-count securities fraud indictment.
Republicans are just disgusting. Like, that is the only way that we can describe these people. And I'm not going to try to, soften my language. These people are fucking pieces of shit. They're disgusting, and I hate them, and you should too. The entitlement that they have to believe they still deserve their seat in Congress, that instead of representing us, they're there to just protect their interest. That is what Donald Trump does. That is what Netanyahu does. That is what all of these Republicans do. These disgusting Republicans, if they're not trying to protect themselves from prosecution for their sex crimes, is they're protecting corporations for prosecution for their labor violations, their labor law violations. Like, that's all these people do, is protect the worst of the worst. But it is starting to catch up to them, and it just did for someone who we have talked extensively about on this show, really against my will, but we gotta cover it because I don't think the mainstream press did enough. But clearly all the pressure on him was enough. I'm talking about good old Chuck Edwards, the guy who loved to give out the concert tickets and the guns and hit on his female staffers and write them love letters and ask them to come to dinner with him. That fucking freak of the week. Yeah, he's had to quit. North Carolina Republican drops re-election bid after ethics rebuke. Chuck Edwards made the announcement after the House Ethics Committee recommended he be censured for persistent, unprofessional, and inappropriate conduct towards 2 female staff members. Representative Chuck Edwards, a Republican of North Carolina, announced overnight that he was dropping his re-election bid. After much prayer and reflection, I've decided to withdraw from my re-election campaign, he wrote, and this is very notable. At 3:32 a.m. Wednesday, the decision came after the House Ethics Committee had recommended on Monday that he be censured for persistent, unprofessional, and inappropriate conduct towards 2 young female staffers, one of which, when Edwards began making his advances, was 19, by the way. The Ethics Committee report detailed how Mr. Edwards would make comments about the women's appearance and dress, shower them with lavish and recurrent gifts, invite them to intimate dinners and vacations, and send notes about his effusive affection. So this guy's a fucking weirdo. He always has been. And I pointed out the fact that Chuck Edwards dropped his big announcement, really just let us all know, making sure that everybody could see at 3:32 in the morning. And that was also around, and as I posted earlier on the channel. Why I've been gone today, why I haven't been making videos is 'cause I was in Michigan. There were some delays in my travel getting back. It's not either here or there, but he posted that right around when Abdul al-Said was declared victorious in his Michigan primary. So he knew there's going to be a bunch of news coming out. There are a bunch of primary victories. He would not be the topic of conversation, and maybe he could just skate by. Maybe no one would pay attention to Chuck Edwards. And why is that? It's because no one has been paying attention to Chuck Edwards. Now I read a lot of news. I watch a lot of stuff. I also report a lot of news. I say a lot of stuff. I write a lot of stuff. I do not think that there has been even close to our level of coverage on this, like screaming hair, pulling out hair on fire, whatever you want to do with the hair over the Chuck Edwards stuff. And I think that's because he didn't break the law, and I'm putting that in quotes, not because it's not true, but because it's a thing that you always hear. I didn't break the law. That's not the baseline that I'd like for my members of Congress, right? That's not the kind of conduct I want out of the people that we're electing, and who are representing us. Man, if I could only speak, it's been a long day of travel. Now those are 2 very separate problems. Let's be clear about that. But it's still when we criticize the Democratic establishment, we're being told that we're not being patriotic, or dividing our party, or we're causing problems, or we're the complainer class. And it is that same type of response that allows, and I'm not blaming this on Democrats, but I'm saying it is that view of our elected politicians that allows for someone like Chuck Edwards to just say, well, you know the rumors. You know it's like, no, there's an ethics complaint. They're investigating you. This girl was 19. You've been married for 30 years and you're 65. And so I don't want the barrier to entry to be like, never being convicted in a criminal court. That's wild. That's wild to me. These are people who are serving in Congress. We would like them to hit some standard, right? Like what? What are we talking about here? But that is a top-down narrative that is pushed by so many to keep themselves in power, right? That, you can't have a perfect candidate. We hear this all the time. We're always told what we can't have. We can't have a perfect candidate. We're not perfect people. I don't expect you necessarily to be perfect people. That's not what I want. And in fact, I'm okay with people who are flawed, but not flawed in abusing their power, right? Like that's what they're doing. I do not want you to be flawed in the way that you govern now. Personally, if you got some shortcomings, you got a little something in the past that you've worked through, yeah, it's okay. We all have different backgrounds. We all have different stories. But to insert yourself in a system that has been beating us all down. Average Americans, the majority of the country, which is the only majority in the country, which is working people forever. We are at a period of time in which the capital class has seen just their wealth balloon. But if you come into these structures and then you abuse the power, I think we can criticize that. It's not, wanting a revolution to say that our members of Congress shouldn't suck. But the media hasn't really covered this, and they don't really talk about it that way, because they're a little afraid, right? And of course, there's some fact-checking and in some sense, you kind of got to understand that. And maybe they're not commentators like me. They've been journalism school or whatever. But I feel like we should be able to talk about this and kind of this open way, because it all relates to this thing that's happening right now that is being broken down. Like that is what we've seen out of Abdul al-Sayed. It's why I was so excited about his victory last night. It's why I was in Michigan, and it is why I've been supporting him for more than a year, because he wants to dispel with this narrative that better things aren't possible, and that you also can't ask for them. You can, and you should. It is your duty to, because our government still serves us. And I think we should remember that we shouldn't allow the pedos and the pedo protectors and the inappropriate behaviorers to say, well, you can't take my seat away from me because it's mine. It's not. It's ours. And Donald Trump does this to himself. He's going to endorse someone who's terrible, and they're going to lose. And of course they are, because people are sick and tired of what is happening right now, and that this kind of idea, this narrative that's being communicated to us, that better things aren't possible, that these people, these entrenched politicians, they stay. I don't just want to talk about the individual instances, because we need to change our way of thinking in this country, and the way that we allow government to operate, and especially these people, the Epstein class, these fucking sleazeballs. And we're going to do that every single day on this show. And if you want to support that, as always, you can hit that subscribe button. Leave a like on this video. And until next time, I'll see you soon.